You are listening now to the Spirituality Now podcast, the show that is solely focused on practical spirituality, leadership, and mindset skills with the aim and purpose of supporting you master your life. Welcome to the Spirituality Now podcast. Welcome to the Spirituality Now podcast. I am your host, Yvonne de la Flor. And I'm gonna say something. I think I need to begin to pay to Mr. Tim Grover and Miss Shari Wang, because most of my most favorite guests, I met them through an incredible group called Down and Dirty that they co-led, that they used to lead, that is right now closed for the public. And I may just give a little push there. Mr. Grover said that he was not going to open them anymore, but I hope he does again. One more round or something better, higher, deeper. But my guest today comes from, this incredible source of personal mastery and mindset that Mr. Tim Grover created. And before I introduce you to him, plus he's a really financial wise, aware being, a couple of reminders that we're philanthropically based. We do not, advertise anything or anything other than that whatever is free, because we didn't want to be told what to do or what we couldn't say, so that our guests can give you their most real wisdom without being confined by, politics. And so just a kind reminder. So the way that you support us is by liking the podcast, sharing the podcast, sending feedback, sending questions. What do you want to see more of? What you don't want to see? How is my English Spanglish accent? Just kidding. I know how it is. I'm focusing on bettering. But, whatever you need, just let us know and just share it. And that's all that we ask from you. So without further ado, my beloved guest today, he's an ally. His name is Cory Budovitch, and I hope I'm saying his last name appropriately correct. He is the founder and president of Budovitch Legacy Planning. BLP is a niche financial advisory which focuses on removing the key erosion factors of wealth. I just love how that is told here. Since the year 2000, Cory has built a rock foundation for success in the lives of his extreme high net worth clients. He has saved them billions of dollars in tax over several future generations. Just let that sink in for a moment. He has saved billions of dollars in tax over several future generations. We're talking past, present, future timelines. Wow, talking about quantum mechanics here. Some of Cory's accolades while doing so are sold billions of dollars of life insurance, qualified for $1 million roundtable top of table last 12 years in a row, organization inside top 1% of world's advisory quality for. Cory has sold some of the largest cases in Canada for life insurance, recognized as world's leading expert in life insurance. Cory is also a lifelong student of self-development. He has worked with some of the greatest minds in the self-development world on getting better, including our beloved Mr. Tim Grover, the Tim Grover, Dr. Bob Rotella, Werner Erhard, T. Harv Eker, Bob Proctor, David Meltzer. Oh, I love David. And he's a father of 4 beloved children, Logan, Marley, Jordan, and Paxton, and his fiancée, Dr. Tabitha McHill. You are married, right?
Fiance, we're close in September.
Oh, okay. Look at me already putting the pressure. I'm not really, I'm not, done with the introduction. Tell Tabata to call me. Anyways, Cory has an outstanding relationship with his former wife and co-parent of his 3 children. He empowers couples struggling through divorce and heartbreak. Cory is also a consultant coach to some of the highest achievers in the world. He is a philanthropist and is passionate about first tea as in golf, not tea as in my drinking tea, because I'm always speaking about tea. The First Tea Foundation, golf and leadership for underprivileged children. I love this. Jewish family and child services, therapy for underprivileged children, conservative government in Canada, and Republican Party of USA. And I think he's really humble because he is really strong in mindset. He is really strong in personal development. It was like playing played like toned down in the bio, but I think he's really strong. So welcome, beloved Cory. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Vaughn. It's a real pleasure to anytime I get to be in your company, it's a
Oh.
pleasure for me.
Oh my goodness, I'm so flattered. Cory, I don't know how you perceive yourself, but I'm going to tell you the behind the scenes of Down and Dirty, how some of us perceive you. I was like, if I was an athlete, if I was competing in a championship, I would totally want to be in his team because he will not flatter me. He will not give it to me like easy. He would be the kind of teammate that you want to just go for it and leave it all in the floor and win. Am I correct in my perception of you?
Yeah, you are correct. I mean, it's all about getting better, right? And better isn't always feeling better. It's
Right.
it's getting better. There's certain things that you have to do to get better, and one of those things is acknowledging the truth. And
Yes.
people know what they can see, but it's like it's hard to not see what you can't see, right? It's hard to see what you can't
Mm.
see. So I
Yeah.
think honesty's I think helps people get better.
Well, I like that, and I like the level of truth, of honesty. I call it honesty, right? Like we're gonna talk about the ugly, the beauty, the dark, the light, it all, because that really makes you uh, resilient, stronger, and self-reliant. But Cory, just we have, this is Spirituality Now podcast, and I love that I have people that are so, I think that the most spiritual people are people like you, are people like the allies that I've met that are living really honest lives, that are bettering themselves, that are treating their spouses well, their former spouses. That's something I admire of you, that are thriving to get better, to get to the deep bottom of their own, of their own mischief, of their own lies, and just, polishing these conscious beings that we came here to encounter and win in our own ways in our lives. So we have a ritual, it's like at the beginning and at the end in the podcast, which is we want you to share whatever it is truth for you. How did Cory became Cory? What is the story of Cory, as a child, that helped that little child help Cory adult right now became that thriver, that person that looks for betterment, that is with the best mentors in the world. He had to start somewhere. What's the story of Cory?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Yvonne. I grew up in a family of four. It was my older brother Mark, who's 4 years older than me. My mom and dad. I had great parents who very hardworking dad and mom that was always around to make sure there were meals on the table, enough food and money for things. We weren't wealthy by any means, but my dad worked really hard to give us everything he could. And I was always competitive. I looked up to my brother, who was 4 years older, and my uncle, who was about 10 years older than my brother. And I wanted to be like them. So, the way to do that was to excel in sports and to, try my hardest. I wasn't a great student in school. I did not, I was not studious. I had a great
Mm.
education after school. When school was over, I became almost obsessed with being successful and
Mm.
doing the things that it takes to create success in my life. I was really heading, unfortunately, nowhere. I had finished school, barely got through. Um, there weren't much prospects for my future. My parents at the time, I was about 26 years old. They had moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And
Mm.
yeah, I had a girlfriend, so I stayed in Toronto. And something told me to stay here. And
Mm.
I ended up staying here, but I had no prospects for work. I had no idea what I was going to do.
Wow.
So I had lived in a basement apartment that had actually sewage coming up through the floor.
Wow.
That's and I was working at a video store, and I knew I wanted to be successful, but I didn't know the steps to take and how
Mm.
many steps it would take to get there. So I ended up, fortunately, my grandparents took me in. I lived in their two bedroom apartment, sleeping on a sofa.
Mm.
And a good friend of mine, his older sister, had said, "Hey, I know you're looking for some work." At the time, it was a brokerage firm called Midland Walwyn, which later got bought by Merrill Lynch and Scotia. And she got me a temp job and at the brokerage firm. And I saw all these fancy gentlemen in nice suits, and they looked very successful. And I was like, "Hey, I want to do that." So I worked there for a week, and in that week, I found a guide of all of the top brokers in that brokerage firm. And I took that guide home, and my job was over, but I needed work. And I cold called every single broker. There was 110 of them on the list, and I got myself 3 interviews. So I ended up getting a job for $14 an hour cold calling. So I would
Hmm.
call successful business owners and set up meetings with them for someone that I worked for. And I did that for about 3 years. I became an administrative assistant. I worked for a broker helping him build his business. And then one day at about 29, I woke up and I'm like, I'm good at doing this, but I'm not making much money, and I'm not helping people to the degree that I want to help them.
Mm.
So a friend of mine connected me with someone in the life insurance business that had an agency. We
Mm.
met, we connected, and we really hit it off. And 23 years later, I've
Wow.
built a I've built a significant niche financial advisory,
Yeah.
which helps some of the most successful people in this planet
Wow.
mitigate tax, get access to more money, create more money in their generation and future generations,
Mm.
and help people solve problems that they might have, challenging situations or problems. And
Mm.
I guess I'm a 25-year overnight success.
Haha, I love that. I love that. I love when people, oh, it's so easy for you. You just do it overnight. No, it's not overnight, but thanks a lot for coming. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming. Good luck with that. Cory, I have some questions because, I pay tribute to what this little boy did, right? What this little boy did. And I'm going to tell little Cory something. I know you were not studious, but that obsession that you have, obsessed of success for success itself, and the realization, I'm talking to little Cory right now, right? And the realization that you had, I'm going nowhere. I mean, I feel, because this is called Spirituality Now podcast, and I'm tracking for spiritual moments, for emotional moments, for mental moments that, oh, light the, turn the light bulbs on into the darkness that we're facing and we're living and we have to go through. And I love that the spirit of that boy is still in you. I see it every time that we are in our calls with Mr. Grover, etc. I feel that spirit of that little boy that was not studious but was obsessed and that was committed to success, and that he realized, that's for me, that was like, wow. He realized, like, I'm headed nowhere. And then you kept working, right? Living in this in the place where it had sewage. You said sewage, right? Am I pronunciation?
Yeah, that's
That
correct.
probably smelled very raw.
Yeah, not very good at all.
No, wow. But all of those, which are great entrepreneur stories for people to know that you are going to get your hands dirty. You're going to suffer. There's going to be pain. There's going to be work, but it makes it worth it. But I loved what you said, and this is where I'm going to go right now, that you said that one day you woke up, and that calls my whole attention. That called my soul, right? I woke up and I realized, I mean, how old were you when you woke up and you realized, I'm not helping the people that I would like to help? Before you went into the insurance, there must have been a moment in your consciousness, in your spirit, in your soul, that there must have been this pain to wake you up and said, I'm going full into the insurance world. I'm going full in to build up this 25-year career that is going to help the best in the world. But what was it? What was the wake up call? That how much discomfort was in there?
It was extreme discomfort. I had a
Thank
girlfriend
you.
that I had stayed for, And she she didn't want to be in the relationship any longer because I couldn't get my act together. I wasn't serious about life. I had no real ability at that point to take care of a family. She wanted to get married one day, have children. And I
Mm.
said to myself, it made me wake up and realize, like, I am going nowhere. Like, I had to deal with the hurt and the heartbreak and the pain of all of that. But
Yes.
it was like a pain of myself, like letting myself down, because I
Yes.
knew I always had this belief that I'd be successful in life. I just had no idea how. Right? It's
Mm.
like I had this inner belief in myself that I would somehow turn it out, but there was no evidence whatsoever for that. Especially early on, the only thing I was really any good at was sports and hanging out with girls. Those were the only two things I was any good at that point in my life. So there
I
was
think some
no.
people listening to this podcast are going to be like, yay, Cory.
Yeah, so I was great at making friends and great at having fun and all of that stuff. But my life wasn't heading in the right direction in terms of what I wanted for myself. And it was an awakening for me to
Mm.
that if I was going to do this, it was going to be on my own. It had to come from me, right? I started getting interested in people like Tony Robbins, and
Mm.
I really loved Dr. Philip McGraw.
Mm,
And
yes.
yeah, at the time, Oprah was being sued. She was
Mm.
being sued by one of her viewers, and Dr. Phil had taken over as a lead strategist for her defense team, and he had come out with a book um, called I got to remember the book, Life Strategies, I think it was called. And I started reading this book, and I was like, wow, like all these things are so true, like about myself, how I act in the world. Lessons like you teach people how to treat you. Lessons like everything you do, there's a payoff for it. What's the payoff? Taking massive responsibility. I got into, studying Anthony Robbins, and I started going from someone who would, blame everybody else for lack of success and every other situation, to realizing, like, hey, this is all me, and I want more responsibility. The more that I can be responsible for things that occur, whether they're my fault or not, the more control I have. And as I started to realize this, I kept taking more and more responsibility, and
Mm.
focusing on where I did want to go and doing the things that I needed to do to get me to that place. Didn't happen overnight. You
No.
know,
Yeah.
I'm not the fastest learner in the world, but I work hard. And I stick with it. So it became a lifelong education, and for me, that will continue as long as I live. Like,
Mm.
um, it never ends, right? There's always another level. There's always more growth to be had. There's always something to learn. I
Yes.
feel like the first half of my life was spent, building up my ego. Like, you have to have an ego to get to a certain place.
Yes.
But as you get older, and you're really good at this, is understanding where your ego can start to hurt you. So the same thing that you built up
You
can
got to
actually.
destroy.
Exactly, exactly. Or,
Oh,
or it can actually get in your way of
yeah.
of advancing and getting better and growing and getting stronger and more resilient and the rest of it. So
Mm. Well, wow. This is getting more spiritual as we go. This is getting more deep, and the reason is because I don't want people to think ever that spirituality is like you meditate and you'll be enlightened, and you'll do a little work here and then you'll become a millionaire. No, no. This is for me. People like you, people that are really in the thick of it all, in the mud of existence, in the painful breakups, in the deaths, in the sorrows, in the egoic journey that we have to go through. The ego for me is like, and you express it so well. We build up our ego because it's needed. We need to have the identity. Who is Yvonne in this world? Yvonne is the wife. Yvonne is the teacher. Yvonne is the mother. Yvonne is the entrepreneur. Yvonne is the owner of this or that. Yvonne is this, right? And then who I truly am, once that ego based confidence in the world is created, then, the soul begins to emerge. Then the mastery of the mind, all of these stuff begins to do. And the destroying part that I don't want to, mislead people is like you build a house for yourself, for you to exist as an identity. And then you have to crumble that because what is inside wants to go to the higher level. That's when we say that when you reach the top of the mountain, keep climbing. So imagine that. So, but I love what you say. You are being like so deep, so honest. And can we just pay tribute for a moment to that old girlfriend of yours that served as a detonator for awakening? Can we just send her good vibes into the time? Because I got to meet you thanks to, not to her, but to your work, but thanks to the pain, the breakup, the all of that. You chose to arrive to the life that you wanted to live. So let's talk about the payoff, Cory, because I think that this is a concept that people in any type of niche that they don't understand. They don't take responsibility, not because they don't want to. A lot of people don't want to, but because they don't know. They don't know that the more responsible they are of their creation, of their message, of their light, of it all, the more power they will have. But let's talk about the payoff. How is that people are getting a payoff for having excuses, for not doing the work, for complaining, for blaming the government, for blaming the mentor? How is it? Let's talk about the payoff, because I think you got it really clear for you.
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. And just to go back to what you said, about these ex-girlfriends and whatever. Yes, absolutely, they were catalysts in my life for positive change. And I believe like angels come into your life at certain time periods
Yes.
to teach you and show you a lesson that you're ready to learn and that are going to make you better. So, in terms of payoffs, it's there's many different forms of payoffs. You have to understand that the brain wants comfort, it wants safety, and it wants security, right? So staying, when you're going for big things, that's not safety, that's not comfort, that's not security, right? Because the ego can be destroyed and rejected, and in going after these things, it might not work out, right? In fact, it most likely is not going to work out the first time you go after something. Like anybody who's successful has failed so many times, and then eventually those failures, and I don't label them as failures, but those opportunities where you didn't get what you wanted, those opportunities are stepping stones to help you get closer to what you really want.
Exactly.
And they make you better, right? But people don't realize some of the payoffs are, like sometimes we want to be right in a conversation. A friend will tell you something, you get offended, and you argue back and forth, but what they're telling you is actually going to make you better. If you
Yeah.
just listen to them, right, you go do what you need to do in some instances, not every instance, but or even with yourself, you know what you need to do to get better, but it's like you don't do it. So some people like the idea of being right? And we know from our dear mentor Tim Grover that everything is an addiction, right? Everything is an addiction, not in the addiction necessarily of I'm not talking about necessarily drugs or alcohol, although those are addictions too, right? But everything is an addiction, and being right is an addiction. Feeling comfortable is an addiction. Um, Staying safe is an addiction. Um, blaming other people is an addiction. Being a victim is an addiction.
Oh my gosh,
So,
you're bringing
right?
the fire here.
Yeah.
Thinking, my ally, thinking is an addiction. Thinking.
100%. And
My God.
and I'm definitely guilty of that addiction. Like I can
Me too.
I can overthink because I'm a big thinker, right? And how I unpackage material and information, and I'm constantly studying to get better, mental
Right.
and self development stuff. So right. That's an addiction. But some addictions, right, are good addictions, right? You might replace, for instance. And this is not my information. This is all information I learned from working with Tim Grover. Is you might replace the addiction of being right with getting better, like seeking more knowledge, before you question yourself, like, am I right in this situation? Is this what's best for me? Maybe replace that with humility, or, being a victim, you replace that with responsibility,
Yes.
right? You replace that with responsibility. So there's so many different payoffs, and you have to ask yourself, what is the payoff for me doing this or this sort of behavior? And you know the answers. If
Yeah.
you ask yourself deep down, we all know the answers to, and we know what the payoffs are of the things that we do, right? When we go into a relationship and we choose to ignore warning signs, right? What is the payoff of that? So
Talk to me about it, Cory. I think, I'm beginning to make my nose like, dang, I got to have a coaching call with Cory.
well, anytime. I mean, I can help you with
Oh,
the
my
relationship
God.
aspect. I've studied a lot on that as well.
Mm,
But lots of payoffs, and you just have to be able to see that, is that payoff worth what you really want? Like, do you want to be right, or would you rather be successful?
wow.
Right? You
Boom.
have you have
Boom.
to be able to realize, do you want a life that works, or would you rather be right?
Mm.
Things like this nature.
Wow, that is so true, because payoffs they are so tricky sometimes, right? Like, especially the one of being right is the payoff is temporal safety, or the payoff is temporal lack of responsibility, where you don't have to do the work, right? But
Yeah,
you
easy.
are,
It's easy.
yeah. So so easy. It is so easy to get a payoff by not doing the work. How paradoxical it is. Like, I'm not going to do the work. I'm just going to blame. I'm going to be a victim of the
Yeah,
circumstances and situations. And I'm going to get the payoff of the justification and justified reason for me not to do the work. I'm blaming it into someone else. This is
yeah,
such a nightmare, a madness. I have a challenge with the being right thing, because not challenge in being wrong, but challenge, like when someone, for example, if someone, it this just happened to me, and I may be doing like a mini coaching thing, Cory to Yvonne kind of SOS kind of thing, and it happened that someone very victim mentality, extremely victim mentality, not supporting his wife, not supporting his children, a friend of mine, and he kept complaining, kept complaining, kept complaining, and I said, "You are such a coward. You have to stop complaining and do some work." And he said, "You are just trying to be right all the time." And since I reflect on that, I was like, wow, he's right. So I immediately went into mode of like taking responsibility for everything, how he felt, how he doesn't pay to his wife, how he does. So I have a challenge with that, Cory. Honestly, in my personal development thing of polishing myself, that I take, Mr. Grover always says, you take so much in your bag of other people, you have to let it go. But when do I know that it's not being right? It's actually just setting a boundary. Does this make sense, what I'm asking?
absolutely. It's a really, really good
Oh my
question.
gosh, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really good question. So, in the situation that you're describing, I think you were trying to be helpful, right? You were telling him the truth of what needs to transpire. See, for me as a man, my role is, and I have high standards for myself as a man. My role is to take care of my wife, my
Yes,
fiance, to give her, the things that she needs, to make sure there's food on the table, and lots of resources in terms of income, and that I'm available emotionally and spiritually. My role is to be a father as well, and that means showing up, being
mm,
present to my kids, teaching them through life lessons, being there for them when they fall down, and to help pick them up. And they struggle. My life's not perfect. I go through the same difficult circumstances as everybody else. My
yes,
life looks great, and it is a great life, but I've built this life. But I do have setbacks and situations that stop me as well. And also my responsibility. Like, I have three gorgeous kids from my ex-wife, and
yes.
she gave me those children. And
Mm,
as their father, and as a man of this world, my job is to make sure that she gets through her life well as well, and that she can continue to be an amazing mom to my children.
mm,
And she was a huge part of my success in building my business, and she was a great mom. And so I think what you were doing is, in that instance, is I don't think you were trying to be right. I think you were being honest because you know that you have mastery in this sort of arena and understanding like what it takes for him to improve his relationship.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
the
Corey,
different,
Corey.
yeah, I think the difference is too, like, are you getting a charge out of it? And
Hmm.
here's another thing.
That's it.
Being right is being positional. So
Oh,
if somebody comes back to you and challenges you on what you said, if you can't be with that challenge and you get pissed off and easily frustrated, then it's
right.
probably a good sign you're being positional, right?
Huh.
I mean, to let go of that part of it, you have to get interested, right?
Right.
Interested in what the person's saying. Like, hold
Yes.
on a sec, maybe what they're saying is actually right and I'm wrong. So we used to have this thing where we would say to each other, try on the possibility. I learned this from other educational organization I spent many years with, but try on the possibility that you're actually wrong
Oh, I love that.
in what you're saying.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I love this possibility every time we're in Down and Dirty with Mr. Grover. Like, I'm like, oh, whatever challenge he brings to us is going to be amazing. And I love this. What you're saying matches, and it's in alignment with what you said, that we spend so many years building our ego and
Yeah.
then so many years to unplugging and undoing. It's more, the spiritual life, the life of personal mastery, of being able to return to calm, which is really the focus right now of my work. Is like, someone asked me, Bon, how are you calm all the time? I'm like, that's a lie. Don't even believe that. I'm not calm all the time, but I have the ability to return to calm any moment. And I think the return to calm for all of us, the deeper spirituality, the deeper self mastery comes from this undoing all the things that help us build ourselves, help us, reach a certain point, but we need to let go in that moment of, oh, I actually was wrong in that. I'm going to let go of this. And so what you're sharing right now is like the dismantling of the facade of the things that we cannot carry anymore further into the future for our next level of success. So, Cory, wow, this was great. Thank you so much. And then I have a question, because I love the work that you do financially to help people, but I specifically love and adore that in your bio it says that you have saved practically millions of dollars. Not forget about the taxes and all of that, but for future generations. Tell me about how powerful that is, or what are the, because you are working with people, that's why I said that people like you are in the spiritual work, because you are saving people from future worries. You are creating safety for their families, creating safety for their grandkids, future generations. That for me is a contribution like no other. So speak to us about the financial work that you do, the problems that you are helping people, be at ease, and the spiritual component of this all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Yvonne. So my spirit is a very competitive one. I like to win, and I like to help other people win. So what happened was I started to understand the financial world, the tax world, and investment world, and I started to see idiosyncrasies within how things are done and how it's actually costing people a lot of money. How they're leaving money on the table by not doing things properly and taking advantage of tax advantage structures. So, in understanding that, I started to understand business owners, and this is where ego does come in, right? Because you do. I had to build a big ego to be able to go and approach and work with the people that I do, but I also have to suppress my ego because it can't be about me. It's about them and what's best for them, their families, future generations. So I go out and I educate people on what they're currently doing, how that how there's lost money um, that's being that's not going back into their own lives and that's being seeped in other places like inflation, fees, tax, and like other eroding factors in investments. I help educate people on that basic economics, understanding economics and how that works in terms of in terms of compound interest. See, everybody talks about compound interest, but nobody talks about compounding tax, right?
Wow.
So, yeah, it's no
Okay, this is the
advisor.
first time I've
Yeah,
heard this. It's
yeah.
okay.
So,
Okay,
so
I'm
yeah.
51. This is the first time I learned this. Thank you.
So
Wow.
as your investments compound, so does the tax that you have to pay on those
Wow.
investments. So we have strategies that can give you the effect of compound interest and take away the impact of compound tax,
Dang.
right? So when you're able to mitigate that, that's a huge factor. That's mitigating the biggest erosion factor in investments, right?
Wow.
And it's all within the tax act in Canada, and same with the United States. You're not doing anything illegally or that's risky. It's right
Right,
in the
right.
tax act. It's right in the tax act, and it's just it's being creative and understanding. This all came from my drive uh, and my sole purpose, which is to help people and their families keep more for themselves. Right? It's so much of success is about the questions that you ask yourself and
Mm,
ask other people. So I had a burning desire to figure out ways, and the
mm.
questions that I asked is how can I help these people keep more of what they make? Because I really understand the business owner. I'm a business owner. I understand what they face. Um, all the hard work, the missed baseball practices from their children, or the missed dance recitals, the stress and the pressure on them day to
Mm.
day of being successful. These are all people with very high standards. These are
Mm.
what Mr. Grover would call cleaners, right? In the
Yes.
real world, right? There's they have a high level of achievement, and they've created massive success through their ability to do a lot of things that most other human beings are not willing to do, and to take themselves to places most other human beings are not willing to take themselves or can take themselves. So they've created this success. And I say, like, I want to help these people because I love these people. I love what they're up to, and they're like me. And I want to help them to keep more for themselves, their families, future generations, so that, at the end of the day, they can say, hey, kids, grandkids, like, grandpa or dad, he worked hard to build this legacy and it was worth it. I know it wasn't fun along the way sometimes, but it was worth it. And I think when you can say that at the end of the day, when you take people through situations, where you're not there as much and you're working hard and you're building this, and you can tell people that it's worth it and show them what you've built. I mean, that can inspire people, and that then you earn respect, which is better than is greater than being liked or anything like that, right?
Absolutely.
You're doing so much more, and to create that lives forever, a legacy, right? Like if I create a legacy for my kids, grandkids, and that I live forever in that, in the spiritual
Yes.
world, right?
Yes, and yeah,
If
and that's an aspect, and you live through. They carry your message, right? You become, Corey, what you are talking about. It's a worthy ancestor to follow. You become, because we all are ancestors of our future generations right now. Whether we're good ancestors or bad ancestors is up to us. So you are contributing to them not only the gift of time, an extension of a betterment of the use of their time for the higher achievers and their future generations, but you are also gifting them the spiritual quality of immortality and
that's right,
transcendence. And that's huge.
that's right. That's
Wow,
right.
Corey.
And I love to give back personally as well. My
Yes.
clients are not just business clients.
Yeah.
These are personal friends, right? These are
I love
these are
that.
people I care deeply for,
Mm.
and want to see them living their best lives. And
Yes.
and I also have a coaching consulting practice where I work with people to help them get things in their life that have they've not been able to get. Could be like a CEO of a major bank that is having relationship issues with children, or it could be a physician that's overworked and wants to improve his relationship with his spouse. There's so many different things. It could be business partners that they've built a huge business with, but they don't see eye to eye on many philosophical differences.
Yeah.
So through the years and years of self development, training, education, experience, I learned that I'm great at helping people solve problems because
Mm.
the first situation where that happened for me is I learned at a young age to solve a problem. When I was about 4 years old, I got into my parents' car, and it was in the 1970s, so you could put cars into neutral. And I
Yeah.
actually drove my parents' car. I was going down a hill. I
What?
waved, bye, mom and dad. Yep. I got in their car. Bye, mom and dad.
Oh my
My
gosh,
mom
Cory.
passed out on the balcony. My father chased me, and I was heading into traffic. And I said to myself, I said, turn left. I don't even know what left is, right? Like as a 4 year old. But
Yeah.
somehow I turned into a house that was a new development, but there was no foundation up, no bricks or anything like that. It was just all mud. And I somehow turned into that. And my dad came and got me out of the car. But looking back, I realized that I learned how to solve my problems and figure stuff out on my own.
Wow.
Right. So I have this ability to figure things out, figure out problems and problem solve. And I have this mechanical brain that can essentially help people solve very complex and difficult problems that they can't solve on their own.
Wow, Cory. My mom, my own personality as a mom was the heartbeat was like so hard. Like there goes little Cory driving the car while solving a problem. Wow, what a lesson. What a great thing to almost complete the podcast, Cory. This is incredible. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Before we end, you just said that you do give consulting, you do coaching. We will make sure to put every information of yours in the copy. We share the podcast. Remember, everyone, we're everywhere, even your Alexa, Sonos, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, anywhere the podcast are, that's where we are. So you can reach out to Cory if you like, counseling at this level. Counseling and coaching and services at this level. So, to complete the podcast, Cory, we have the last ritual, which is, what is one spiritual. You've done the legacy piece, which I think is a very important aspect of spirituality, of mindset, of being a well-rounded human on earth, a human that contributes to human civilization. I aspire that when my life ends, that I will have done a little bit better with my planet than when I found it. I really, I have this obsessive responsibility, sense of responsibility of that. And I think you cover all those points. But what would be a spiritual blessing for the people that are going to listen to you? Most of them are in Latin America. For their, not only their finances as money, but their spiritual, mental finances, for them to grow them, compound them in interest, reduce the tax of the cost of making, indecisions, doubting themselves. That's the erosion of the spirit, right? What will be your blessing, Cory, to our audience today?
Well, I have to tell you, I love Latin people. My fiance is Spanish, and they are just the most loving, caring, nurturing, thoughtful
Mm.
people. She was raised by a lot of incredible women in her life, and an incredible dad. And I thank God for that every day because I get to benefit from that. She's amazing. But what I would tell everybody is continue to believe in yourself.
Mm.
Wealth comes in many different ways. Financial is just one aspect of it. There's so many other aspects of wealth. Continue to remember who you are, know who you are, be who you are, and bless as many people with your gifts, because each and every person has a special gift, and you can find that gift by looking at your most difficult circumstances and what you did to overcome that. Use that gift and share it with as many people as you can in the world. And I think if we all did that, think how much better this world would be, right, Yvonne? If we all
Oh,
shared like
amen.
you and I. You and I are givers. I know the kind of person you are. We give to the world. If anything, we give too much, right? But this is who I am, and I can't change who I am. So what I do is I manage who I give it to.
That's a lesson for me right there. Getting better at it every day, getting better. What a beautiful blessing, my ally. Thank you so much, Cory, for being here, for sharing your wisdom, for taking your time, your very precious, time of the day. We'll make sure to share with everyone how they can connect with you, how they can follow you on social media, etc., and take the blessing. And not only take the blessing, everyone, to make an action upon it. Faith, remember what Nietzsche used to say, faith without action is dead. So inspiration and motivation is not for us. This is not spiritual bypassing things. This is not a show for aspiring effect for you to be comfortable and be pat in the back for today. Just make sure that whatever you took from Cory, make an action today. Make it your own. Go for the result. Go for that win today. We love you. Thanks so much, Cory. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week with another incredible guest. And that's it. Les mando un beso. Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere where you prefer to listen to your podcast. Make sure to check the links to everything we mentioned in this episode. For more news, future or past episodes, or for any other inquiry, please visit our website at delaflorteachings.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the Spirituality Now podcast.